How's it going, guys? It's Mr. Lone Wolf, and today I'm going to go and test this out, Frog's Truck. It's a new mod they've added. You only have to download the one thing, but there's two versions of it. There's this one, which is the 4-wheel version, yeah, and then there's another 6-wheel version. So it's a bit like those Titanius Maximus, is whatever the bloody hell they're called. Yeah, this thing is pretty cool. It can have like the truck trailers and the scout trailers. I've got the off-road trailer pack on at the minute. That's why there's like a few sort of duplicates of the same trailer, just with all like the off-road suspension and tyres and everything. And yeah, after driving it around, it's I think a pretty decent truck, well balanced. It's yeah, got a lot of nice things going for it really. It's got some pretty nice suspension. It's fairly basic on all the add-ons you can do, but that's not necessarily a bad thing as long as the ones that are there, you know, actually do something and are of some value. Yeah, driving through here. On my way just to the farm in Black River to go and have a little mess around. Motoring along quite nicely down there. Maybe a tad fast in that situation. It's not always like... Most of the time it just floats along in high pretty nice. So it was a little bit probably of an extra speed boost down that lane. That said though, I mean what, it's like you're driving through mud that's probably barely an inch deep, so a truck like this in real life would happily go down that sort of road at, I don't know, 30-40 mile an hour, so I certainly wouldn't say it's like unrealistic in that sense. It's just, yeah, it actually quite nicely feels, I think, yeah, just pretty well balanced, like pretty realistic in terms of weight and its power and the speed and just it, sort of all of it together really. Pretty cool that it was able to knock some trees down. Didn't get the whole line down or anything like that, but I think it's about 4 in a row, which is pretty decent for a scout, I have to say. Yeah, cutting across here, so this is like became a little kind of improvised rock test for it. Or for some of the things I've been testing anyway. And yeah, it actually does climb all this sort of stuff very nicely. Even here, it's about the first thing that's even attempted to get its nose that far up. It got stuck on this bit. I think just slight unluckiness with the wheelbase happens to kind of perfectly match both ledges, so it didn't want to jump at both of them at the same time. But yeah, overall, that's pretty nice that it can actually, you know, it actually does keep trying to climb up and stuff. Sometimes you've got to jiggle it around a little bit, just try and find your little grooves, the little spots of kind of a little bit of extra juicy grip, help you climb up there. And again, I've drove quite a lot of things sort of up here. There's one or two things that make it. I think that the Gaz BTR or the, what's it called, like the B8053, something like that. Yeah, that as a mod, like as a scout, that's a pretty nice mod as well, I think. It's just, for a scout, it's very well weighted and planted and all the rest of it. But, like I said, those things I tested yesterday. I mean, they're not complete write-off mods or anything, I just think they need a few tweaks, really. But, yeah, they just didn't have the grip and stuff like this thing does. And, yeah, the end result of stuff like this is you can go roaming around some little areas that you don't normally get to go in a lot of stuff, really. It's still got that horn on it. Yeah, this is going for a little blast. Got a trailer on it. It's like the, well, you can see the trailer is. I can't remember what they bloody call it now, but I've got the off-road version, so it's got like the off-road tyres and I assume slightly raised suspension and everything. And yeah, I mean, motoring along down here, I admit you wouldn't pick this thing as like long term to be towing this kind of trailer. That said, I believe as a kind of one-off, you know, it's doable. It could drag this thing along. I just like to say, long-term wise, I don't think it would be doing your engine and transfer case and prop shaft and everything too many favours, but it's not my problem. That's the mechanic's problem. But you can see though, once we loaded it up with cargo, I mean, that's where I think it doesn't feel completely unrealistic. I mean, I assume this thing's trying to be like a Dodge Ram type truck. There's plenty of them you see on YouTube that are kind of a little bit tuned up, got a little bit of you know, extra bits and bobs on here and there, and yeah, I could see one of these things kind of at least hauling this trailer along. You know, I think you'd actually make it. I mean, I'm not absolutely flying now or anything, and I'm fine with that because for the most part I wouldn't really select this kind of thing to tow this kind of trailer. It was just, you know, as I'm messing around testing the limits of sort of what we're dealing with. Yeah, this is what I gave a go, and I mean, it's slowly, it's certainly getting close to its limits, but it was able to get this trailer up the hill. And like I say, for the most part, I mean, this thing you'd normally probably tow something like a Scout fuel trailer and go flying along. If that, I mean, this certainly wouldn't be the main purpose for me. I quite like it just roaming around, yeah, going a bit freestyle off-road, some of the boggier bits and stuff. It's again, it grips through there very nicely, but it doesn't feel completely OP like grips just, you know, been set to God mode or something. It actually feels like it has been balanced, and yeah, they've kind of found a pretty good sweet spot with it, I think. Quite like the sound of the engine as well. It's not too whiny and whistly and annoying. It's not that loud, but it's still just the sound of it when you're ticking along. It sort of feels like it's putting a bit of effort in for you, which I appreciate, because there's some trucks in this game, probably not specifically the truck itself, it's more the rev and speed caps that this game has kind of put on certain trucks that I feel are a bit more harsh on the off-road gearbox versus the high range, hence partly why I prefer the high range myself. Yeah, they just, sometimes when you're driving along you can hear the lack of effort from the engine, and it just feels a bit disappointing, because you kind of feel like if those rev caps and stuff weren't there, maybe something more would be happening. Even if it was just more wheel spinning and not going anywhere, I'd rather the vehicles making some kind of attempt at least, rather than just throwing in the towel and deciding that, yeah, it's got hardly any revs to it. I've cut a few of these bits and bobs out. I mean, this, in the end, doing the food delivery run, I think this thing got 5 minutes 45, but I definitely think I could get a bit quicker with it. You can see, though, it's certainly not flying along like a Tiger or something bigger would, which, again, like, I sort of appreciate that, because I don't necessarily want it to be like some crazy God mode or anything, but at the same time, it's nice that it can, yeah, handle, like, just stuff beyond its own weight kind of thing. I mean, again, with that Watcher yesterday, its main thing with that really was grip or lack of, and I didn't try every tyre. There's a few people have been saying a couple of different tyres to try with it, and yeah, like I say, I'm not saying it was a horrible mod or anything. By all means, get it and try it, and if it's your cup of tea, then go for it. That was just for me personally. It didn't really fill a niche that there's loads of other mods that can do what that did and then some, so it was like there wasn't really anything it was actually bringing to the table that, yeah, I hadn't already got. This is now the 6-wheel drive version, which is basically the same looking, just 2 more extra axles on the back again, ticking along nicely with an empty trailer. I mean, out of both of them, they're both pretty similar, obviously. This one's got slightly smaller tyres because it's had to fit both rear axles in, so I think this has got the 45-inch boggers I went on it, and I think that 4-wheel drive one's got 49-inch tyres, so it's only 4 inches, but as I said before, that can help. It definitely, as far as just your average speed ticking along, I think it does help. However, in this situation, I do believe that having 2 rear axles, so you've got 4 tyres that are trying to drag you out the mud, as opposed to 2, it's, yeah, it ended up being a little bit quicker. I think this was more, I got about 5 minutes, but you can see, relatively similar. I mean, were a little bit slow going up this hill. But again, back to kind of put it in the context of, if this kind of thing was happening in real life, I'd be pretty happy getting up the hill at this speed, towing this kind of trailer with cargo on with this truck, so I still think overall it's, yeah, going pretty well. And let's say most scouts you don't even get the option to attempt the truck trailers, but yeah, most, even if you can't really handle it. The loaf, of course, he's a goddamn professional. I've whipped many of these trailers around with the loaf and the semi-trailers. Again, we need a loaf mod with a saddle high and a saddle low on the roof, and it can be a full-on cargo loaf. And again, like I said, I was cutting patches out. This video is definitely a bit longer than expected. Yeah, that's definitely what she said. But yeah, there was certain bits where I was like, I don't really want to cut that out, and yeah, I've been roaming around tonight, messing around with them. I've left the bits in that I think kind of help demonstrate, yeah, what I like about the truck, kind of its general characteristics, how good it goes through various different terrains. I like cutting across this section. See, the other day when I went through here in the Azov Iceberg, I went further over to the left, and that's where it was a lot deeper. This bit, you can kind of almost see like the pebbles and everything underneath the water at that point. It's shallow enough that it's pretty easy easier anyway, for scouts and stuff to cut through there. And yeah, here to the finish kind of ticked along at the same speed. That's why I said I sort of edited them bits out, because to be honest, I saved myself about 3 or 4 minutes off this video, which it was over 30 minutes before. I wanted to preferably try and get it down to about 20, but it is what it is. Yeah, again, I went a bit mad there, but I still don't think that's unrealistic, because for a 4x4 truck like this, it would be ticking along a dirt road like that. You could easily get it up to that speed if you want. Not to say that's advisable, or that you're going to be having your truck for too much longer if you do, but that's my problem later on when I crash or something. But the fact that the game isn't physically stopping me from doing something that's kind of normal, yeah, I appreciate that I am allowed to go mad, and then it's down to me to control the madness, rather than just being like, nope, that's out of bounds to begin with. And yeah, you can see back there as well, it's ticking along through the mud nicely. There was still a little bit of restriction in some of the deeper mud, but I think with a truck like this, if it was set up like this with the, yeah, you know, slightly upgraded suspension and all the rest of it, it's got some nice big bogger mud tyres on it. I assume it's got a bit of a juicy engine compared to probably a stock version of this. Yeah, I think it would motor through mud like that kind of reasonably well. I don't think you'd automatically be crawling 2 miles an hour through everything that's, you know, gets deeper than a few inches. Apologies, there's a little glitch there. It was a shame. It was a nice smooth run up here. But yeah, this is going up that windy little track to the top of the mountain. I think there's a mission on this map called King of the Hill where you have to get a checkpoint on top of here and then probably that tall mountain in the distance you can see. Yeah, it felt very nice. It felt very nice and fluent driving up here. Like the steering feels nice, even down to once you've got it on full lock and you kind of blip the throttle, it sends enough power to the back that it wants to drift a little bit. Not really drift, just helps the back end step out and scoot round. At the same time, it sends enough power to the front wheels that they kind of grip the direction that you're steering, and that helps pull your nose around. And overall, yeah, you can get some quite nice sort of tight turning circles on the go. And now, I mean, I'm flying down the mountain, you never know. If you ever have to outrun a volcano or something, you need to know these things. Except the loaf, of course, if anything. A volcano has to outrun the loaf. Yeah, I mean, I landed a bit iffy, but thankfully it's got one of those just handy winches that seems to work. A winch point in the corner. I didn't realise, oh, in the middle, sorry. Didn't really realise how much you'd miss a winch point in the middle until I was driving that Watcher yesterday, which, yeah, for whatever reason, was it the Watcher or was it that other one? One of them didn't have a winch point in the middle, which is yeah, a bit of an oversight really. It could certainly do one. Anyway, yeah, motoring down here, I mean, again, pretty nice on the top speed. Not insane though, so it's not absolutely just becoming, you know, mental drift mode where you're not really connected to the floor. For a jump off there, it's sort of got a little bit luckier, but I'm not complaining. You know where like the physics kind of lock you. There's almost like a horizontal plane and a vertical plane. Kind of locked me up in the air long enough for me to pull on the winch and flip myself to my wheels. However, it did stall now. There isn't any winches, there's very little you can actually add on to this. There's not as much as there is with the Titanium Maximus. Yeah, there's no winches to choose from. I don't even think there was any kind of add-on options to add in the back or anything, but I mean, yeah, it's not the end of the world. It's very nicely equipped as far as like the amount of health it's got on the suspension and everything, so I don't believe at any point tonight in all the various driving around I ever managed to get anything to go into the red, so it certainly lasts long enough for you to do, you know, the general things you're going to do. And yeah, driving out of the water was pretty nice. Driving back up here, there was no issues. Again, it just feels like the main thing I think Frog's nailed with these mods, like all his mods really, is the very nice, the suspension setup and everything, and the tyres, and just the way it feels planted to the ground. That's like a biggie that some trucks do it well, but some not so much, and they, yeah, I think that kind of shows generally in, yeah, it's kind of a reoccurring theme with what people's favourite trucks are, and yeah, there's some trucks that are just not quite doing it. And I like how, I mean, again, it all motored up there. It's just got enough grip that it can actually climb stuff, but like I said, without being complete sort of OP mode, making grip just an irrelevant factor. Like, it's still there, but there's enough there that you can actually, yeah, just go out, go roam in the hills, have a good time. You're not really getting, yeah, too held back every 5 minutes. A little bit dodgy climbing down there. I appreciate in real life it would be a little bit sketchy, but we went for it. I think I did a little Jeff special on the runway there. When you drift though, you can get faster in high range. That's sort of in a way how the Jeff special works. You kind of break traction, go drifting, and then you kind of go zipping off down the runway before it has a chance to regain its grip. It feels very well planted to the ground as well. All the weight distribution, the weight itself feels pretty nice. So as you can see now, it's ticking along up here with no real issues. It's not trying to roll over to its roof or anything like that. So I thought while I was up here, because I drove down here yesterday with that Watcher, and then I tried to hit this tree in the Watcher. It didn't even get that far, I think, with that. This didn't have a chance, though, really, of knocking it down. But yeah, this was the section I drove up yesterday where I think it was the Watcher just couldn't quite get all the way to the top. And like I said, I'm not hating on that Watcher at all. I think it's a nice looking truck and everything. It's the only thing is for me, grip. If that was sorted, I'd have another little blast with it. Yeah, this on the other hand though climbed up there very nicely, very competently. I did this on purpose now to roll it. See what happens, see what sort of damage it takes, see how well it lands, see where it lands. And you can see there, I mean it flipped back over to its wheels and kind of had a nice little heavy plonk onto its wheels, but it didn't actually carry on rolling, so again I'm just able to stick it back in gear and go for another little roam on the mountains. And yeah, I went for another little roll, slightly less intentional, still just enjoyable. Slapped a tree, so can't really go wrong. I had to go at popping a loaf on the 6-wheel drive on. I mean, he gets on there because he's goddamn professional, but yeah, I've got no option to pack it so far, so maybe I'll have another attempt. Anyway, in the end, I stuck the loaf on sideways, and nicely with this, there's a winch point in the middle at the top of the roof. You can see the tiny little short length of winch that I've gone from, yeah, kind of the centre roof of this to the centre middle bottom of the loaf. He's hanging on there pretty well. The height of realism. Again, it was just I was curious at this point. Well, slight stubbornness that I was just... I mean, normally I probably would have just edited this out completely. This was just for my own enjoyment to see if I could get a loaf on there. But yeah, in the end, as I ended up being in this situation, it was just quite interesting to see, will it try and tip this thing over, or will this thing kind of resist? And yeah, so far I think it's doing pretty well considering. It's got a horse of a vehicle flopping around on the roof. Went to make the gap through the trees. Oh no. Overcooked it. Typical that the loaf landed back on its wheels. When doesn't he? So we got him on a winch rate. I had no real way of trying to get him back up on there. Well, I didn't try, I just thought, sod it. Stick a winch on him. And we're off. And again, because this has got an extra set of axles, in some situations, probably clawing up the hill like this, ploughing through the snow, it's yeah, it's not a bad thing at least anyway. Like I said, overall, yeah, it's very close, but I probably would choose the 4-wheel drive, but there's really not much in it at all. In fact, to be honest, I have kept both of them, so I'm quite happy to use either one. But yeah, the slightly bigger tyres on the 4-wheel version. And again, I edited most of it out, but I went down the hill with my loaf. He climbed back up on his own. See? He can hang with the big ones. Sounds like something she said. This is a little blast on... what's it bloody called? Flooded foothills? Yeah. This is my second playthrough though, so I've not uncovered any of this map or anything yet. And I'm going to pretty soon, to be honest, because again, I'll do another live stream pretty soon, and yeah, I think it's about time. I thought if I can open up this map more, then I get access to Big Salmon Peak. Same with Lake Cobd as well. I need to do a few little bits and bobs on that, and then I'll get back on Imandra as well. Because on my main playthrough with Imandra, I've done every mission on there. There's just zero reason for me now to revisit Imandra. And like I said, I mean, I don't know how likely it is, but I'm hoping at least by the time they had the 4th phase or something, that they would add the option to just reset missions, because Yeah, it's just, like I say, I mean, mainly I'm on my second playthrough, largely because I'm testing a lot of mods, and if it's going to glitch anything, I'd rather it glitch my second playthrough than my main one, but I am also pretty restricted now on my main playthrough. I've got a few missions left, but they're kind of either massive missions or nothing. Whereas, yeah, making a video, it's quite nice to kind of choose, yeah, a mission that takes 15 minutes to half an hour. But you can see again, and the mud is extra trollish really on flooded foothills, but it's ticking along pretty nicely through it, and I sort of feel again a little bit more, sort of, yeah, realistically. See, like there, I mean, it's not unlimited power, even in high range, it's definitely stallable. It can, when I was towing those trailers as well, there was once or twice where it didn't want to remain in a high range anymore and it started trying to stall. So this was a little bit later on in the flooded foothills. I'm kind of going up that hill now, heading towards the lake. This is kind of a little sneaky way up to the top of the mountains. But yeah, as far as how connected to the floor it feels, it's yeah, I think that's been well done, which is nice because it translates to a pretty, yeah, just a pretty smooth, fluent drive overall, really. So in damage-wise, picking up the odd one here and there, but I quite like that. I don't mind that. That's kind of, like I've said, sort of substituting wear and tear as we're ticking along. But it's not just automatically wiping out like 50 or 100 points with every little hit. You can see in the high range now, it's just ticking along as normal every now and then, and I wouldn't say it's necessarily mod specific, it's just with the characteristics and the mechanics of the game. Everything goes a bit mad in Jeff's specials every now and then, and I think that in fact did there. I don't really mind that for the most part, quite a lot when I'm just driving, trying to be a little bit more normal. I'm sort of feathering the throttle anyway. By this point though, I was sort of hoofing it a little bit, but gotta have some fun. I was curious though, heading this way, because yeah, this is the lake at the top, which was a bit trollish, to be honest. Even these little muddy lanes that I was driving down were a little bit trollish. Probably not back before, but when you get to next to this lake, yeah, the tracks that run alongside it, yeah, I was going very slow in a lot of trucks along here. This thing though is ticking along pretty nicely. I mean, once you get to the middle of the lake, you can kind of see the bits of ice that are just solid and not really going anywhere. Yeah, it's sort of breaking through the ice, but it's ticking along quick enough that it's got time to kind of make its way over. But again, you can see now it's started slowing down in high range, which to a degree I think is good, because it's again not just been dialed up to make the terrain completely irrelevant. This is slightly a separate thing, but I remember somebody saying this a little while ago. When you get this mission, which is called Aid Thy Neighbour or something, I believe, you get that trailer, and every time you discover the trailer you get 30 points. If you restart the mission, it kind of resets the trailer and you get another 30 points. So if I look now, I'm on 1,570 and I have to get to 4,100, but if I click restart on it, it refreshes the trailer, gives me another 30 points. I'll check my points again, and now I'm on 1,600, so yeah, it's working, and I think now I'll just try it twice in a row to see how quick you could do it. A couple of seconds, so for anyone, if you want to boost some levels up a bit, that's one way of doing it, is yeah, coming to flooded foothills, getting that trailer and kind of resetting it a few times. And lastly, pretty much, this is a little drive on Drownlands. Sort of doing the container delivery run, but without a container. Because to be honest, for the most part, the money isn't really an issue these days, but yeah, I think this would be ticking on fairly slowly, a bit like it was on the food delivery mission. I don't think it'd be terrible by any means, but I don't think it'd be a big flying run or anything anyway, so in the end I just more wanted to test the thing out, going through mud and that. I was going a bit mad there, but it's nice, again, that I can, and it's then down to me to let off the throttle and calm down a little bit, or, in the case of what I did, keep it pinned, fingers crossed, and watch the damage mount up. But mainly what I'm doing here, I was heading to the sawmill, because as I drove over those logs yesterday in a couple of different trucks, just for my own peace of mind and to kind of demonstrate the difference as well, I was going to drive this thing over the logs and just see. I mean, I had no clue myself at this point. It's a goddamn horse of a vehicle. Still got to rescue him. Well, so rescue him. Does a loaf ever need rescuing, really? So I quite like how planted it is, as in it wants to stay on its wheels. Even when I did a drift there, it didn't just instantly dig in and flip. Which I think is closer to real life. Not to say you couldn't drift a 4x4 and flip it, you certainly could, but they don't go as easy as a lot of them do in this game. And yeah, it was close, because just sort of with the wheelbase distance again, it was kind of perfectly situated between the logs, but eventually it was able to climb up, and yeah, you can just see there's more grip there. Enough to where it could handle its business. No problem really going back this way until here, but again it's just sort of a victim of, that's the wheel distance, and it's kind of just slotting down nicely. Stuck a little winch on though, just to at least get that front nose off there, and yeah, it climbed the rest of its way out. And at this point I was about done, so I did just stick it in high, keep it pinned, hit the horn, ram a tree. But this is a pretty boggy, swampy area that doesn't take any prisoners for the most part. But again, this thing's ticking on. I mean, not just absolute flat out mode, there is resistance happening from the terrain and everything, just not to the point where it's sort of boring and the same repetitive 2 miles an hour. So yeah, overall I'd definitely say they're worth grabbing. There's both of them. I mean, pretty much the same setup on either one, same suspension and everything. You can have the lower suspension and get the bigger tyres, so that's nice. But yeah, that's about it for today though. I hope you enjoyed, I hope that helps. Thanks for watching. As a goddamn professional, and I'll be back soon.